Hello and welcome to the Animal Enrichment Workshop. Today I'm going to be showing you some of my favourite natural resources that you can forage for yourself and use them as enrichment items. So let's get into it. Alright, so starting off with the humble pine cone. This is one of my favourites to forage and find for animals. Now, it is very versatile in the way it works. You can find them in most places. However, unfortunately for me, Darwin, Australia has a lack of pine cones that are around the local area. So very disappointing with that. But pine cones, when they're closed, parrots, excellent for parrots. I don't know of many other species that would use a closed pine cone with all the seeds inside, but otherwise excellent for those guys. Once it's opened up, so too do your opportunities to use it for a range of species. Now, I absolutely love it because with the pine cone like so, you can wrap string or corn husk or whatever around it. You can string them up to suspend them. Whether you've got food in there is up to you. You can use different food items, dry food, wet food, whatever, depending on what species you're working with again. And they're excellent because they do get a really good grip on them, particularly for, species like raptors that I work with. I love the fact that they can grip them, they can pull the tabs off, gives them that natural plucking and ripping apart behavior, as I say in most videos. But otherwise, putting food in there works really well because it's a sort of a thinking, and it acts as its own sort of natural puzzle feeder. And I've actually used it for blackneck stork, and it's worked incredibly well because she's had to get her big beak, roll it around and get it into the little nooks and crannies to pull out pieces of fish and meat and that kind of thing. So definitely a good one to try and forage. Ask around if you don't know of any in your local area. I've asked on Facebook pages before because I didn't know where any pine cones were and if there were any around, and people have helped me out and located them for me in far north Queensland even. So I definitely absolutely love pine cones. Perfect, get around them. Alright, so next up is coconut husks specifically. So the coconut nut ball can be used, as you've probably seen in previous videos. If not, for holy feeders, I've drilled holes in there. Animals can roll them around and get pieces of food out. But otherwise, the husk itself is excellent for ripping and tearing, hiding pieces of food in and that kind of thing. So you can dig around, hide bits of food in there if your animals are curious enough to dig through and pull things out, particularly for smaller primates and that kind of stuff I've found. But otherwise, really good for any animals that enjoy a ripping and a tearing and pulling apart, and particularly if you're working with animals that you are, birds in particular I suppose, breeding or are able to use for breeding. Perfect nesting material that they can pull apart and get themselves. So I've come across whole coconuts to get these, and then I've just, as you can probably see, beat them up with the back of an axe, then split around, pulled them off, and that's how I've got my husk. Otherwise, I think they're pretty hard to try and locate unless someone around your local area has got coconut trees, or you can find them just naturally. But I've only ever found them in North Queensland, occurring naturally, and tropical Darwin as well. But otherwise, keep a lookout. They are a good one if you can source them. Alright, so third up is something that a lot of people might not have actually heard of, because I know that I didn't until I moved up into the northern areas of Australia. So I'm not sure of the distribution of pandanus and where they're found throughout the world, but this is one of the species of pandanus nut. So once they've ripened and fallen from the tree, they're this bright orange coloration. I've seen other keepers use them for black-footed tree rats because I know that the seeds inside are pretty tasty, and the rats in the wild naturally are going to be picking apart and eating them. So in the captive sense, they work as a really good natural food item. Now, red-tailed black cockatoos are another species that can get into this. So parrots would be excellent if you can find them. But for raptors, I like them because they are something that they can grip onto and sort of pull apart. So this, once it dries a bit more, starts to fray. And so it does give a similar sense to the coconut husk in that the animals can sort of pick apart. I've given these to wedge-tailed eagles and stuff like that. They've gripped them, walked around with them, spent some time trying to pick and pull and pluck. And it really does extend those natural behaviors for quite some time. So, and finally we have a couple of variations of banksia. So banksia starts out like this one, or it starts out like a flower. I'm pretty sure it's only Australian. So if you work in other parts of the world and you've seen these, or you've got similar plants around, fantastic. But again, for raptors that I work with, they are absolutely excellent because they start out as a flower, the flower dries out, and this is the little florets of the flower. So they can be plucked off like you're plucking the fur of a mammal or something like that, or feather of a bird. Pluck it down, really fun for raptors to grip onto and pluck like that. Parrots play really well with them as well. Now this is another variety, and this is one that started to form its seed pods, as you can see here. So when it's closed like this, perfect for parrots because they can rip open the seeds and they absolutely love it. And then this works really well for larger raptor species, I've found as well, because they can grip on and pull apart something a bit bigger. This is a little bit more fragile. As you can see in the middle there, the seeds haven't started to develop or mature yet. So these big ones are what the small ones are on here. But otherwise, awesome for a range of different animals for ripping and tearing, if you've got any animals that are into that kind of thing. Now, naturally, when the seeds have fallen out and all of the hairs have fallen off, you are left with this. And this is something that, like our pine cone, can be used for a range of different species. It basically functions the same way as a pine cone, except it's in a different shape and format, really. So putting pieces of food in there and giving it to animals to grip onto, carry around, scavenge and look for pieces of food that you've shoved in to the holes there. So hopefully that's given you some ideas for animals that you may care for and what you can use for different species and natural products that you might have around your local area. Obviously, it's not restricted to this. Look around as you're going for walks, drives, bikes, anything around the place. Keep an eye out for things that you might be able to use. Forage ethically and properly, I might add as well. Don't take stuff that is going to be, pillaging the local environment. This is a native species to Australia, as is this. These have dropped naturally, and I don't absolutely harvest everything I find. Leave some for the wild animals as well, and don't go absolutely crazy. Take little bits from different areas and make sure that you're doing it legally as well. With the coconut I've got, very easy, and the pine cones around the local areas I've found are actually invasive, so it's even better. Some species of parrot in Australia do eat them, but there's a range of native stuff for them as well. So keep your eyes open wherever you are in the world for things that you might be able to use for free and naturally forage for your animals in your care. Thank you very much for watching. As always, happy enriching, and until next time, goodbye.